Welcome to our third video on Excel graphs. This one's going to be a pie chart, and I've started with some information. I polled two of my classes and I asked what month they were born. And before I start, I usually ask them, why do you think I'm starting with December? And let's take a look at why that might be. So if I select this data and I insert a pie chart, I'll do it very simply. You can see that there are a lot of similar size slices here, and that's okay. That would be fine, but I'd like to take a look at this data in a slightly different way. And the answer for why we start with December is now we've got them grouped by season. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. And now I can just add up my winter months, and I'm just going to adjust these. So spring would start on line 4 and go through 6. This would start on line 7 and go through 9, and this would start on line 10 and go through 12. So I've just used some formulas to now get my seasonal birthdays, and actually in my particular case you can see that they're fairly close. So just for the sake of the graph, let's move those around a little bit. Change a little bit of data, and now you can see fall is more heavily weighted. And let's do one more thing. Spring, let's take March here. Take some off March and add it into summer. Okay, so you got a little bit more of a range. So in order to do this, now we're going to select this data, insert a pie chart. Okay, this is a standard pie chart. This is what's called an exploded pie, which simply pulls one piece out for further examination. And then this is a pie of a pie. So this is a case where there's a pie chart showing sub-data of one of the slices. Now this is one case where I might actually jump down to the 3D pie. It looks better and it is pretty simple and easy to work with. So let's do that. Got a nice pie chart here, and you can see that the key, which comes on by default, lets us know which of these slices relates to which season. As usual, if I go to layout, I can put a title on here. If I need to edit, I can click right in there to do so. Now, if you want to work with this pie itself, like moving it or resizing it, it's a little tricky. If I were to grab it and try to move it, what I'm really going to do is I'm going to explode the pie, which is an option if this is the way you want to see the data, but it's not what I was looking to do. So to fix it, I'm going to drag them back towards the center. If I want to resize or move this, I have to imagine that there's a rectangular box around the pie which is tangent at these 4 points. And in fact there is. So I want to click inside the box but outside the actual area of the pie, and I'm going to get the shape of the box. So now I can resize it a little bit, I can grab it and move it a little bit. Okay, and that makes all the difference. Different options. If I say format data series on here, you of course have your fill options. I can put a nice picture of a beach for summer and leaves for fall and fix all that up. Of course you've got border color, border size. I can put a shadow on this thing or make it, it's already 3D. Other things that I can do though is I can add data labels, and I can do that through right clicking, or under layout, here are my data labels that give me a little more control. So under data labels, it's going to either put them in the center, the inside end, the outside end. So if I click that, they now go outside the graph. And if I click on one and get all 4, of course I can do any of my normal adjustments, something we haven't done before. I could change the font, I could change the size of the font, the color, etc. Okay, so those things are under data labels. Also, if you go to more data label options, you'll see that right now I'm showing the value, but I could show the value in a percentage or simply the percentage, which is sometimes a good option. You also have the options for category name. I probably would choose in most cases just the key instead, the legend, and the series name, and this is something that's probably not going to be too useful for you in most cases. Now there is a show leader line box check there, and what that means is if I drag this out of here, it's going to show a line that indicates which slice of the pie it's associated with. And you don't absolutely need that. In a case like this, I think, depending on how I position them, it's fairly obvious. So I might come into my data labels and uncheck the leader line. Oh, repositioned it for me, unfortunately. So it's going to force me to do the work again. Okay, or you can leave them on if you want. The last thing you can do with this is 3D rotation. So it's a 3D graph. By changing this, I can spin it around if that's more useful for me, and I can also change the angle at which I'm looking at it. So there's a rather flat angle. That's not going to do me very much good. And there it is increasing. Okay, so lots of different options you can use on pie charts. I'm going to pause this for just 1 second and throw a couple of pictures in here. Okay, so I've thrown some pictures in here to represent each of the seasons. You can see that my key is not terribly useful at this point. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to bring the size of that way up. I have to resize my graph a little bit here. Okay, a little bit better. Still not great. Again, students love to do these things. They're very creative. It gets them involved. But you do have to point out that the graph is providing useful information and that it has to be clear. It has to be clear to the viewer as to what that information is. Okay, so experiment with pie charts. They're a lot of fun and they can be really useful. As with all of these charts, one choice might be to have students create them. But the important thing is really their ability to work with the data. So if they're younger students, perhaps a teacher will create them and we'll just view them and try to make some guesses as to what might be happening, why it might be happening, what the graph itself is telling us. Older students may be making the graphs, and other students may actually be collecting the data and determining what type of graph best represents the data they've collected.